Recording in progress.
Hi, Jake. How you going?
Good, mate. How are you? Well?
I'm really, really well. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat to us today.
No dramas at all.
Well, mate, I want to start off by saying congratulations on the film. I've had a chance to sit down and watch it, and this is something special, so congratulations.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
So, mate, tell us, what was your first thoughts when you sat down and read this script? Because it's one of those scripts where it's got so many twists and turns and so many things about it that makes it different to other films that are out there. What were your first thoughts when you sat down and read it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really cool. I had to read it a few times, to be honest, because I couldn't quite grasp the split personality thing. I mean, it's changed quite a bit in the edit with a lot of that voiceover that sort of explains a lot. But yeah, I mean, I read it a few times. It was a funny one. It was in the middle of COVID. Me and Blair had sort of been working on another project that we're still sort of working on, trying to get going. And he's like, I've got this idea for another film. We can do it a lot quicker and easier. And he pretty much wrote it. A month later, we sort of got it all together. And then, a couple of weeks, then it was all of a sudden, it was like, oh, we can shoot this in 2 weeks. So it was a really quick process for this one. And, tiny budget. We all sort of came together to knock it out in about 2 weeks. And it was, I've always had a lot of faith in Blair as a writer, and for his first crack at a film under those circumstances, middle of COVID, a very quick turnaround from the first draft, minimal budget. It was really, I think he shows a lot of promise. So I was, and he's a talented writer. A couple of his other films, we're doing it. We're in pre-production now for his next one, and I think he's that sort of action crime drama. He's got a real knack for it. And there's another one that been working on for years. I think that'll eventually get made one day. And that's really cool as well. So I really like Blair's writing. I like his, he doesn't shirk away. They're just sort of, it's entertainment at the end of the day. It's, high action and, that crime world. We're hoping that, as the more and more films he does, the budgets get bigger, everyone's experience gets more, and I think he's going to make some really cool films down the track.
Definitely. Like, that quick process, do you rather that as an actor, or do you prefer to go away for a couple of months and work on a character? Like, what kind of pressure did that put on you, like, only having a couple of weeks?
I'd much prefer to have time. I mean, one, I think physicality is really important, and just the time to sort of, develop the scripts, develop the character. I think the more time you have, for me anyway, I prefer. But I mean, this is just one of those things that they raised a little bit of money, had a script, and we're like, let's go. I've been sitting around in COVID for a year now, and no one's really doing much. So we went up to Queensland and did it, and dove in, and it was cool. It was a different experience. But yeah, it is what it is. Sometimes you get the luxury of having, like the Savage film I did, I had, 4 months with that, which was great. Other jobs, you'll get a call and you're on, I've got a film I'm doing in Melbourne next week. I only found out about it yesterday. So sometimes you have, the luxury of that time, and other times you don't. So you just got to, they're all different. But I do prefer to have a bit of prep time, but, so you just go with it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you mentioned that when you first read it, it was difficult to get your head around. So from an acting point of view, when you read a script like that that's a little bit confusing, do you then go back to the director, screenwriter and have some chats to them, or how does that process work?
Well, I'll read it. I'll try and read it a couple times. I mean, and sometimes it can just be your environment. I mean, I've got a couple of kids too, so at the time I had a 2-year-old. My 4-year-old was 2. So we were sort of in the thick of that. So your concentration levels are, so and sometimes I just like, oh, hang on, I better go back and read that, when I've got a solid 2 hours to sit down uninterrupted, and that can help. But I think it was just, just me sort of slowing down the process of reading it. And, then I spoke to Blair a lot about it, and it was, and the hard thing about a film like that is translating that onto screen, because it's, then it started making sense on the page, and then, to translate it onto screen was, is a really difficult thing, but I think they did a good job. I mean, it's one of those things. If we had more time, there'd be things that would have been fleshed out and cleared up. But it was, it had always been. Kane was always. I don't think we even, to be honest, I don't think we expected to be having a North American cinema release when we were making it. It was almost like a bit of a warm up for the one that we're starting to do. We shoot in about 3 weeks, so it was always, let's test a few things out. Let's get, a young team, a young crew, guys like Jeremy Lindsay Taylor, Nathan Phillips. We've sort of, we're all doing Blair's next film. And so it was kind of like a practice run in a sense. So the fact that we ended up getting an American release, and distribution here, and it was actually a bonus, and we're really excited about that and very grateful for it.
Definitely. Now, the fact that your character Kane is a personality, how do you approach that? Does that change your way of approaching the character at all?
I mean, I think you still have to play them. I mean, in my head, he is a living, entity. He's a man with feelings. He's a man with, there's reasons behind his choices. There's a past and a history. And I think you just have to take it. You have to just play it as put yourself in their shoes and play it as a living human being that has, that's coming up to these, living in these circumstances and, has these obstacles in his life. So I think you've just got to try and forget about the fact, I'm only playing Kane. I wasn't playing Abe. I wasn't playing both of them. So I effectively just had to play him as a person and, what drove him and, his mental status and all that. So it was, I don't think I did it any different than if I had to, if Kane was a real person, I guess. If I was playing Abe, Kane and the others, I think that's a whole nother, kettle of fish. You've got to, then you've got to delve into the different psyches of it. But yeah, to me, he was just a very tired, emotionally and mentally sort of messed up hitman who wanted out. So I'd sort of had to just play him, as best I could as a human being. Yeah.
So what kind of research do you do then playing someone like a hitman? I remember years and years ago talking to Joel Edgerton about his character in The Square, and he said that he actually hunted down someone who was in jail for being a pyromaniac and spoke to them. Do you kind of seek out novels written by people who were hitman or watch hitman films or try and hunt one down? What's your process as an actor?
With that, I think me and Jeremy worked really closely together on this. He's a really dear friend, and so we sort of work really closely with our research of what drives Kane and where Kane comes from, from Abe to Kane. And sort of, we sort of are not necessarily the hitman sort of side of stuff, but more the psychology of split personality. So in a sense, this is probably contradicting what I just said in the last question, but yeah, I did most of our prep. Me and Jeremy sort of spent some time together in a house. It was pretty, it was almost it's an old abandoned house a friend of his was about to knock down, and we stayed there for a little bit and just sort of dove into the psyche of, the criminal underworld and someone who is experiencing, split personalities and where that comes from, and finding similarities with both characters, like, the way Kane smokes a cigarette and finding these kind of mannerisms that we can pull from one world into the other. So all that was really interesting. I mean, and you don't always get the luxury to work with a great mate and do that with another actor. But we got to work really closely building both the characters. So in a sense, we knew we could have played each other's characters because we worked together, and that was kind of the idea, because Abe needs to know Kane inside out, and Kane needs to know Abe because he comes from Abe. So what sort of turns Abe into Kane is, me and Jeremy needed to be on the same page as that. So I really enjoyed that aspect of, building two characters with someone else, but, you're essentially only playing one each. But they're one character, so yeah, that was really cool.
Definitely. Talking to you now, I can see that you're a big fan of Blair Moore's work. Tell us a little bit about that relationship with Blair that you have. How did you first meet him, and what is it about his work that you love so much?
Blair's just fresh. He's not from the film industry to start with, so he sort of doesn't. He just wants to make cool films. Like there's no ulterior motives. There's no. He's unaffected by the film industry of, doing it for 20 years. And he just literally he's a great writer. He's got these ideas and he's like, I want to make them. And he's, spent time directing different bits and pieces. But to do his first film, and then we met, we actually met probably 7 years ago. He's got another film that he'd been trying to get up for a while called Dishonest Bunch, which is a really cool, crime drama, but it's witty, it's fun, great characters. It's there's a bit of a Guy Ritchie sort of vibe to it, and it's a big film. Like it needs a good budget. It's a big cast, a really big ensemble cast. So we've been working for years, sort of trying to get all the pieces together, and we've had some great actors that are wanting to come on board, and then they've become unavailable, and then finance is always a big thing. But we've sort of spent 6 years together trying to get that going, and then he sort of, just wrote Kane in the middle of COVID. So it started off just being someone introduced me to him. I think Eddie Baru, and a fellow actor, was doing Dishonest and introduced me to Blair and said, oh, you should see Jake for this particular role. And then it just, over the time, I came on as a producer for it just because we both believed in it, and we still do, and I think we'll make it one day. But yeah, and Blair's just real. There's no BS with him. It's just, he's a normal guy who's, wants to make cool action films.
Definitely. So Jake, I know we're running out of time very quickly, so just two really quick questions. First of all, what was the shoot like? This is one of those movies where it's a pretty physical film. There's a lot going on. What was the actual shoot like?
The shoot was great. Like we had a really young crew, and they all just stepped up. And it was a small crew, so everyone was doing bits and pieces of everything. But it was fun. Like it was a lot of guerrilla shooting. Like we were running around at night time shooting stuff, and we had a lot of help from Brisbane. Was really awesome place to film it. If anyone's wanting to film a film, I'd be shooting it in Brisbane because the people are so willing to give you a curb to shoot on. A convenience store. They were like, yes, sweet, come in and shoot. There was, not all the red tape that you usually have in sort of Sydney or Melbourne or whatever. I mean, we had the police, escorting car chases down the valley at safe speed, but as long as they could be in the back of the shot, like it was just really cool to have people support you.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the vibe of the whole. I mean, I don't know if that's just Brisbane because it's just such a. If you're so conditioned to the way Sydney and Melbourne sort of operate, it was and a lot of these guys are from Brisbane and Queensland, so that sort of that kind of energy of let's just get in and do it, and like sweet, no one's trying to stop. It was just a really good, a really good team effort. We all knew we were doing it in a really small time. We all knew we were doing it on a shoestring, and it was just one of those really sort of nice big team efforts to get it done. And it was, the fact that we even got everything completed was pretty cool because it was, and plus with coming out of COVID, it was, everyone's, you still had to, there's a lot of, guidelines and stuff with everything. So to work in with that, and everyone was really good, and, it worked well. So.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to working. Pretty much the same crew. We're doing this next film called Homewood, which we shoot up in the Goldie in about 3 weeks. So that's same crew, same DOP, Tim, a lot of the same crew, half the same cast as well. So it's good. We're sort of building a little team together, and we're just going to keep making these fun sort of action films.
That is
Get them bigger and bigger and bigger.
That is awesome news. Well, mate, last question to finish everything off. What would you like to say to people out there who are about to sit down and watch the film?
Thanks for tuning in and watching it to start with. It's really hard in Australia, the Australian film industry. It's hard to get people to, especially with streaming services now, it's so easy to click on this, click on that after 2 minutes, so, and a lot of the time, if people have an option for a low-budget Australian indie action thing or a big blockbuster, you know, most people will go and choose the blockbuster. So anyone who's actually going to sit, you know, to give us the time and sit down and watch it, just a big thank you to start it, and I hope you enjoy it. But I really appreciate people, you know, we need to get behind Australian cinema more and more, because it's you know, it's there's a lot of great stories out there to be told, and there's a lot of great people working, cast and crew, and you know, if we can get people to watch and support Australian cinema, we can keep it alive and we can keep it growing. So big thanks to anyone who's, you know, given it the time to sit down and have a crack, whether they like it or not. That's, you know, it's everyone's opinion, but just to give us a shot is really appreciated when the market is so saturated with so much awesome, you know, material.